Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. When I was a teenager, the youth group and we usually took 2 trips each summer. One was a mission trip, often to a community in the rural Appalachian Mountains, and then one canoe trip up in the Boundary Waters canoe area in the northernmost part of Minnesota. Now, for many clergy people I know, annual youth mission trips to serve in impoverished communities became the first part of their call to ministry. I know it worked that way for me. In Appalachia, I saw the beauty of the mountains marred by mining, littered with garbage that residents couldn't afford to have collected. In the mountains, I learned that it was often safer to drink a soda offered on a hot day than a glass from the well. I learned that you should always wear your shoes, while noting how many of the kids whose homes we worked on didn't have shoes that fit. In Appalachia, I learned about poverty, and I started to realize that it is not right for people to live without the things they need for health and well-being. It is not right that some should have so little, while my suburban friends and I had so much. That early exposure to poverty and the subsequent reflection on my privilege, along with the reminder from my pastors that this is not what God intends, for some to have so much and some to have so little. In God's dream, we should all have enough. All of these planted the seeds of my call to ministry, to a vision for my life in which I might work toward a more just world for all God's people, regardless of where they were born and to whom. That's not an unusual beginning for a pastor. But that other trip, that one that could have been chalked up to merely fellowship, let's go camping, that trip awakened something unexpected in me. Have you ever been to the Boundary Waters? Have you ever been up there? Acres and acres of wilderness, lakes and streams and hills and trees so green you could practically smell the lushness. Water so clear it reflected the skies. Water so clean you could fill your water bottle at the side of your canoe. No motorboats were allowed. Even air traffic was limited to a flyover prop plane twice a day, scanning for anyone who might be in trouble, because of course there were not cell phones at that juncture. We ate freeze-dried meals reconstituted on the Coleman stove, watched the countless stars from around the campfire, visited the Kaibo, that's an acronym, in the woods. Don't figure it out now, figure it out. We played cards and sang and murdered mosquitoes. Every breath in that place, even at the Kaibo, even swatting bugs, was somehow full of prayer. This place, oh God, this place, holy and beautiful. I'm not sure I was really aware at 13 of what having a soul felt like until it felt refreshed on those lakes. No matter that, as a teenager, I often felt awkward and ill at ease. On those trips, I carried canoes and packs on my shoulders. I made jokes to encourage those in my group. I played with freedom and confidence. No matter that I love cities and have never wanted to live anywhere without mass transit and a theater scene, on those trips I reveled in the glory of God's good creation and my place in it. There was something about the air, something about the quiet of that place, interrupted only by the voices of the 8 in our group, and when we were traveling, by the sound of the paddle dipping in the water. In, slice, drip, drip, in, slice, drip, drip. So refreshed, I could handle junior high. I could handle high school. By January of each year, I was ready to go back, though one should not go to Minnesota in January. And the longing for the endless, still waters kept me going until we could return in the summer. God leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. I find now that my soul still longs for refreshment, for the rebirth of hope and the sustenance of God's presence. I feel it especially in these days. 3 or 4 school shootings within the last 10 days. Jerusalem is awash in violence. Some are calling it the third intifada. The Reverend Carrie Ballinger Smith, pastor of the English-speaking congregation there, asks for our fervent prayers for peace. My friend, the Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg, asks the same. In our own state, funding for all the most vulnerable persons in Illinois, children, those with disabilities, the mentally ill, those who are hungry and homeless, basically anyone Jesus calls us to care about and for, has been cut in a pretense of fiscal responsibility that benefits the wealthy on the backs of the poor. My soul is longing for refreshment. I am longing for restoration. I have been urging friends and colleagues. I finally wrote a blog post. It's been like 6 months. And I was urging folks, call your representatives. We have to say something. We have to say something about this violence. We have to speak. But that's not quite enough. It is a way to buoy our hope, to bring it to the surface, but it can't sustain even me. We could give money. We can make sure that we vote according to our beliefs, but we need something more. I was encouraged this week then to hear on Wednesday that Mike went down with representatives from DuPage United, one of the groups that we work with in the congregation, to Springfield to start advocating around mental health issues, or not to start, but to continue advocating around mental health issues in our state. Together we can do more. That is, of course, what community organizing teaches us. Together, we can do more. Together, we might know our souls refreshed. It is not just others, though certainly the vulnerable are among us. Who has not known someone who has struggled with mental illness? Who has not known someone or themselves had moments of poverty? But these things are personal for us as well. A friend of Josh's and mine got dropped off at the airport. Josh dropped her off on Friday. This is the benefit of living close to O'Hare. The downside is the flight path. He dropped her off and thought that she was heading off for a nice weekend with some friends or family. But as it happened, one of her relatives had fallen on financial hard times, had lost his job, and was about to lose his home. His family was really struggling. And in that despair, he died by suicide. Community cannot save individuals necessarily. It is a whole host of factors. But that feeling of isolation, the feeling of despair, the feeling of being all alone, we need something to speak to us in that time. How can our souls be refreshed? How can our souls and our lives be restored? How can we know God's grace as clear as flowing streams, as the psalmist attests? One of the ways is through growing together in community. We're in the middle of our annual giving campaign. In a minute, we'll see a video with Mike being less than serious. probably in a different hat than he wore in Springfield. And we'll think, as we have done over these last few weeks and as we will continue to do for the next few, of the abundant life that we know in God, of the call of the psalmist and our very own children telling us to not be afraid, for God is with us. In our congregation, in our communities of faith, we know that in a very real way. We experience God's presence and God's sustenance not just once a week in worship, but through the building of relationships that can sustain us over time, in the most difficult times. God is present not only in the wilderness of Minnesota, though surely God is present there, but God is present here and now in how we are present with one another, in how we are united. The offertory today I foisted on Stephen and Ryan, and I am grateful to them. It is one of my favorite songs by a singer-songwriter who goes by the name of M. Ward. It's called 100 Million Years. And in some ways, it's a love song. But it spoke to me and speaks to me of the wisdom of this psalm and really what it is that binds us together. This river that we ride has always been alive. Oh, my soul, 100 million years. The lights that shine tonight have always been alive. Oh, my soul, 100 million years. This love between you and I is brighter than that burning ball of fire in the sky and the gale that fills our sail. This love of God which binds us together is older than time itself, and it is present here. It is present here in the work of this community, in the ways that we nurture and care for one another, and the ways in which we seek to refresh the souls of those we care about and of our very nation and world. May your souls be refreshed this day. May you know the presence of God in this time of worship and through the life of this congregation. May you know this refreshment today and always. Amen.